Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Cup of Tea with Gio and Gonzo. Hope you've all enjoyed your Christmas. Gonzo, did you enjoy your festive period? You've been off the radar for the last few days.
Yeah, nice. Thank you, mate. Yeah, friends, family, lots of food. You can probably tell. But I've been plagued by. I'll tell you now. I've been plagued by this doll. I've had to switch it off. It just keeps playing Frozen songs. It's a Frozen doll. Oh my goodness, I want to destroy it. To be perfectly honest with you. What about yourself?
I'm not a fan of Christmas, so it's okay as Christmas goes, I suppose. But it's Boxing Day for me. I like Boxing Day. Football, sweeties, beer, more sweeties, more football. I like Boxing Day. Have you got your cup of tea there? Are you ready to go?
I got my cup of tea, and my plumbing supplier gave me a festive mug. So there you go. I'm right ready, mate. I'm ready to discuss transfers, takeovers.
And you've got your flashing lights there. We discussed transfers last week. We'll be doing a transfer show, very same style as this next week, as well as we head into the January transfer window. We would have done this show. We're going to be talking about the Red Bull thing and takeovers in general, I suppose. But we would have done this when the news came out. But the news came out on like Boxing Day. Gonzo was away. We're all busy. We had the Swansea game on as well, so we had the review to do, we had the Leicester preview to do, which is up on the channel, so we had too much videos to do. So this was the only day. This is the earliest opportunity me and Gonzo have had to sit down. We've not even spoken since before Christmas. So what do you make of it in general? I suppose. I mean, it came out in the paper that it was 200 million, and then Jack Sullivan came out and said actually that's wrong. It's 650 million, and then David Gold said, well, hang on, we've not heard anything from the Red Bull. But if you look into his tweet a little bit more, it sounds like David Gold's talked about now, and he was referring to the Sun's Red Bull report, as if to say that actually, no, Red Bull haven't been in touch. And he did say from Red Bull, he didn't actually say that there had been an agent or something in touch, which would likely happen. If there is, there'd be some sort of middleman that goes between the two at the start. And then David Sullivan went on to the official site. The co-chairman, co-owner went on the official site and said that actually back in August, Red Bull got in touch, but we're only interested in someone who is extremely wealthy, like the Prince of Saudi Arabia or something. Well, let's talk about the Red Bull one. I mean, do you believe it, first of all?
Well, I do now. It's been on the official site, and as you said, I've been, away with family for Christmas. And whilst I did get to watch some of the Swansea game, you texted me and said, "Have you heard about this?" And then you were sending me links, weren't you? So I could sort of keep up with it. So yeah, I mean, once you sent the initial thing through to me, and then we started looking a little bit more into it, it was quite clear that there had been a bid. And there's just so much to discuss with it, and and it does sort of bring up other parts, like you said, he'd accept a bid from the Saudi Arabian prince and this, that, the other. And so once he admits that he would sell to a Saudi Arabian prince, the only thing that really you're haggling over is the price, because basically once you admit it's for sale, my camera that we film our Talk a Good Game with when we go on the boats is not for sale. But believe you me, if somebody comes along and gives me twice as much money as I paid for it, it will be for sale, and I'll sell it, and we'll go and buy another one. So yeah, I did believe it, but clearly the rumored 650 million was not enough.
Do you believe the 650 million? Though, do you believe the Red Bull 650 million, or do you think it's a bit complete bull?
I'll
give Charlie that one. Charlie said it to me. Oh, it's a different type of bull we're used to with these owners.
Yeah,
I'm using that.
I think the story's got some wings, mate.
Wait,
got to have a Christmas cracker.
They don't say that anymore, though. They got sued.
What? I know they did, didn't they? I mean, that's it. For those of you who don't know, Red Bull, somebody sued Red Bull because they said Red Bull gives you wings. And funny enough, he didn't sprout any wings. So they sued him and they couldn't use it. It's just ridiculous.
Well, he did lose his teeth, and he's now diabetic. And all he did was drink Red Bull to try and grow wings. And he lost all his teeth. And he's diabetic, and he sued Red Bull, and he got a hefty payout. So they're no longer allowed to say Red Bull gives you wings.
Sounds like my carpenter who works for me, actually. But Yeah, well, the guy's an idiot, really. Not my carpenter. The guy's an idiot if he's going to do that, and he thinks that he is going to suddenly sprout wings, and that he needs help, really, and certainly needs a bit more than a can of Red Bull. Yeah, I think there's some legs in it. Is it the 650 million? Who knows? I mean, they've got their hands tied slightly because there's a ratcheted system that they've made with the mayor's, we call it Stadium 185 or whatever, LLDC, whatever you want to call it. Basically, the mayor's office have an agreement which Boris Johnson made, whereby if they sell within the first 10 years, particularly year one of the first 10 years, then I think it's something like 20% of the profit goes, and it basically goes incrementally, it goes down each season. So, they're going to want to make a big, hefty profit on it. But it's hard to smoke and mirrors, because obviously they'll trot out the line that they have no desire to sell. But as I say, they probably have no desire to sell at 650 million if they've got to give 20% of it back plus. But then they've got the loan fees to be repaid, because the owners have actually loaned the money to the club. So whilst we might not be in debt to Icelandic banks, we have debt to the current owners. So if someone were to come in and bid it, so let's say it was 650 million, the cost wouldn't just be 650 million, it'd be 650 million plus the debts that Gold and Sullivan are owed. So who knows about the money? But well, what do you think? I mean, I don't think it will be under this ownership in 5 years' time. Certainly not.
I'm surprised that they turned down 650 million. That's a large. I'm not even convinced we're worth 650 million. I think if we own the stadium, completely different story. But anyone that's got the Wonga, that wants the whole package, would then have to stump up an extra few hundred million to get the ground as well, etc. So 650 million. I mean, we don't own anything. Our playing staff's probably worth 350 million market value for the playing staff. So 650 million I thought was a fair price. But then, like you said, I think it's 30%. They have to give up 30% of profit, which is a huge amount of money when you think about it. I mean, that must be about 150 million they'd have to hand over to the government, etc. So they would lose a hell of a lot of the initial price. But I'm not sure. You said it yourself? If Red Bull came back, they said we'll only sell to the really wealthy people. Do you think if Red Bull came back with even more money, they would take it regardless of who's offering it? Or do you think they are actually club's interest at heart, thinking, no, we're not selling to anyone. It has to be the guy that can take them to the next level that we can't do?
Well, I think arguably we would have to talk about the badge and all the branding that Red Bull do in a minute. But if just put that aside, out the argument, I think arguably Red Bull do run their clubs well, and their Formula One team, and the Leipzig, I think, are second in the Bundesliga, and they've come from nowhere. New York is Red Bull, Salzburg is Red Bull, and I've got a couple of others as well.
One more, it's Brazil, Red Bull Brazil.
Okay, don't know anything about them, but clearly they do run a good sporting franchise. I think they bought somebody off Nottingham Forest for 15 million or something. The German outfit. So and they're above Borussia Dortmund, so they can't be too bad. So I think they probably do invest, and they probably do run it all very, very well. Do I think the owners have West Ham's best interests at heart? I do. So when there's small decisions to be made, will they facilitate laying on good coaches for the away fans and that sort of thing? Those small decisions. Do I think they'll do that? And absolutely, I do.
But they don't. The funny thing is, I don't want to go into it, but the funny thing is they don't, though, do they? They don't lay on away coaches for free or anything.
Oh, okay. I mean, maybe it's a bad example. I travel to away games on my own, but it's you know what I mean. I think they possibly would on the small decisions, but I think actually when it came to, we're going to make an additional 300 million above and beyond the 500 million that we anticipated, do I think at that point everything? Oh, you know what? I'm not worried about the old West Ham fan that's travelling. But I just think they'd be gone, and these are entrepreneurs. They've, as I've said to you, we said it in the other show. If they weren't bothered about money, they would have got to a situation where they were comfortable, had a few houses, and they would have stopped it. But entrepreneurialism, if that is a word, is addictive. You've seen them. You watch The Apprentice. You see the people on Dragon's Den. The buzz is in the deal, the next deal, and of course, you know, it will be a really, really good deal from a really good profit. They made good profit on Birmingham City, and if they can make good profit on West Ham United, whilst particularly David Gold's lived in Green Street. David Gold's been a West Ham fan all his life. If it's, you know, he's probably achieved a lifelong ambition by being West Ham chairman. It's probably something he always wanted to do. Probably wanted to play professional football for the club first. But if you're, you know, not good enough to play football, then maybe own the club. He's done that. And if at the same time, by achieving his dream, he can make 300 million profit, then why would I've yet to hear anybody come up with a reasoned argument as to why the owners would not sell if the high offer came in.
No, I totally agree. Do you worry that one of them would want to accept, another one wouldn't? Could you ever see the scenario where one of them, the money comes to the table, and one of them bites and says, I'm taking that part of money, I'm taking my share of that, and I'm off. It's up to you what you do with your share. But that's me out of here.
None of it worries me, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't worry if we stay with these. I've always said that these owners are the best owners I've ever known. Okay? And that's just the fact. If you look at my life, 42 years of age, these are the best owners I've ever known. The lot before and the lot before that, absolute shambles. I mean, really, really bad. All right, it's some of it's not great, but we have broken our transfer record a couple of times. You know, you can argue that Andy Carroll and Valencia, Matt Jarvis weren't the best signings in the world, perhaps, you know, and obviously Ayew more recently, but the intention was there, and they have broken the transfer record 4 times. So I'm not worried, because what's the worst that can happen? We get stuck with the people that are in charge now, and having looked around, particularly we've just beaten Swansea at the weekend, and you look at the mess there and look at what their owners, American owners coming up. Don't like American owners. We could do 20 minutes on that, by the way. Those American owners came in, thought they knew best. They brought that Rob Bradley in, load of rubbish. Now they're going to have to get somebody else. Been an absolute farce. When you look at clubs like that, you think, actually, you know what? Whilst we might not have Roman Abramovich in charge of the club, they are a steady pair of hands. So I wouldn't be bothered if one of them sold half the club and then someone else came in. Not really, mate. I'll be far more concerned with what he said was, because we've got to talk about Red Bull specifically, but when you start realising who is going to be, I think if a multi-billionaire took us over, then you've got to think, well, hold on, are they going to be doing the right things? So the people at City are very good. Are they Abu Dhabi? I think they might be Abu Dhabi, City. They don't really get involved very much. They've improved the surrounding area. They have a good fans experience. They have good entertainment, don't they? There's entertainment going on before each City game. The ticketing's pretty good. They've done good things with the stadium. They've really invested in the team. They're clearly a good bunch. The moment you start asking for investment, the last thing I want is a Saudi prince for a whole host of political and humanitarian reasons, the things that are going on with that country and Yemen and women's rights. I mean, the last thing I wanted would be to be Saudi owned. So I think they've got to get that right. If they do sell, they have a responsibility. They are custodians. They've got to choose correctly who they sell to.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, well, let's talk about Red Bull. I mean, it'd be silly not to. I think too many people maybe dismissed Red Bull too easy because of the sheer panic that the name and the crest and the colours would change. Now, I'm not saying that's what I want to happen. Please don't jump on me just yet. Just hear me out. But I think there's a happy medium somewhere where Red Bull's concerned, and it doesn't really fit with what they do so far. It's not really, it doesn't, you look at what they've done at all 4 football clubs and what West Ham fans would require from them, it doesn't fit in. I mean, I don't know, are you different? Would you accept changes to those 3 elements?
I wouldn't accept any changes to the name. I wouldn't accept any changes to the crest, which sounds bizarre because we've just changed the crest, but I've got old shirts. I've got old Trevor Brooking shirts. I've got a Julian Dick shirt with just crossed hammers on it and no castle. I've got, you know, so I mean, what I do want to see is a ball stuck on the, you know, on the middle of me what's it, and you know, whatever. Red West Ham Red Bull or Red Bull West Ham or. No, I mean, I'm not up for that at all. I think recently with a move from the bowling, we've lost enough of our heritage for the moment for the moment. There's enough new stuff. It would almost feel like a totally brand new club, with a new stadium, new training ground, just new everything. Oh, actually, and a new name and a new badge as well. Well, I mean, actually, it's stuff like that would set off people. Someone would set up a splinter club. They'd be like, FC United, the Man U thing, and AFC Wimbledon. Someone would do a splinter club if that happened.
Well, remember we talked about this not long ago, and I said, when we were talking about the board, and I said, I don't want to see us sell the soul. And you said, well, it's already kind of done. There's already people in that crowd that aren't West Ham. I said it could get a lot worse. This is what I was referring to. There is a lot worse. You have to be careful who you sell to. I mean, the thing is, though, I couldn't see Red Bull taking over West Ham, getting the name changed anyway, even if they wanted to. It's not as easy to do in England Premier League as it is elsewhere. I mean, in Germany, a lot of people think the RB Leipzig stands for Red Bull. It doesn't. It doesn't even stand for Red Bull. People just assume it does. It doesn't. They've cleverly worked their way around it. But I think in England, in the Premier League, you wouldn't get away with it. Hull City tried it, tried to change it to Tigers, and the FA just said, no, you're not doing it. You're not changing it to Hull City Tigers. It's staying as Hull City. The council at the FA just dismissed it completely. So I don't care what your merchandising, your marketing reasons are behind it. I don't care. You might own the club, but you can't just change the name like that. Unfortunately, it has to go through a procedure. And I don't think it would wash with the Premier League. But one thing they could do, which the Premier League probably wouldn't have much control over, is changing the badge. And I know a lot of fans don't like the badge. I think the only thing that bothers the fans about the current badge is the word London. I don't think it's so much the crossed hammers, the Newcastle. I don't think that's what bothers them. I think it's just the word London on there. People think, hang on a minute, this is a bit different. But I'm the same. You can't change the name, you can't change the badge, and you can't change the colours. I wouldn't change the colours. They're all white, and you can't do that. The very happy medium for the kit would be our away kit, be white with claret. White would predominantly come our away kit. I mean, we wear white anyway. Every second season, our away kit's white, so it would just become every season our away kit's white instead. But it wouldn't be white and red; it would just be white and claret, or white and blue, or whatever. But apart from that, is there anything else that would stop you saying yes to Red Bull apart from those three elements? I mean, that's the three things to me that stick out. Those three things.
Well, aside, yeah, I mean, they were, and we're right to discuss them. I mean, there's a line in the sand there for me. I mean, if they want a red and white team, why don't they go and buy Charlton Athletic? I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, but my main thing, when we did our first cup of tea show, and we just discussed a lot of general topics, didn't we? And a lot of it was how the boards were performing and that sort of thing. And I thought at the time that I said something along the lines of whoever comes in and buys us has to be considerably richer. Now, I don't claim to be an expert on Red Bull's balance sheet, but I guess what goes on is they make so much profit through their drinks and for everything else. They want to channel it into something. So I think they probably reinvest their profits, and they're trying to build their brand up for global awareness or something. There's something, some sort of branding issue going on there. So I don't know how much richer they are. Now, we know that Gold and Sullivan...
Yeah, just to butt in 2015, their turnover was 5.1 billion.
Turnover, yeah. How much? Yeah, I mean, turnover's a funny thing. But net profit, that's the thing.
The reason I think, I could be wrong here, someone can research this, the reason I think they're not so fussed about the profit is because they're not a publicly owned company, they're privately owned, so there's no shareholders that you need to look after with the profit and balance sheet, so they can plough their money back into projects, as they call them, like football, like F1. They can plough the money back in there, and like you said, it does then give them advertising and grows their brand completely.
Well, I mean, I guess the other thing is when someone spreads themselves so thinly, what happens if the Formula One team, what happens if Lewis Hamilton falls out with Mercedes, and actually they think, oh, hold on, there's an opportunity for us to get Lewis Hamilton. Actually, we want to pay him 50 million a year to drive for Red Bull. Is that going to impact the football clubs? Is that so? What I'm saying is would there be a West Ham budget, a Leipzig budget, a Salzburg, or is it just a sporting budget? So I think there's probably a lot of things that you'd want to find out. We know our owners. I think Mr. Sullivan is worth close to $1 billion. A lot of it tied up in property in Mayfair and that sort of thing. Mr. Gold, I think, is worth about 400 or 500 million. So whoever's going to come in is they need to have a huge expendable. income, and they've really got to change things for West Ham. I mean, West Brom got taken over recently, and he said recently, and I know they've rumoured to have made a bid for Schneiderlin and whatnot, but Pulis said recently the new guys have come in, want to run it along the same lines. I think the old chairman's been retained as a chief executive, and they've said actually would still like to run and operate in profit. Well, actually, there's probably going to be no noticeable difference for the West Brom fans then. And they're probably fine. I mean, actually, for a club of their size, for West Brom, they're doing pretty well, aren't they? They've got stability. They've probably got more or less what they want. But I think if we were going to do the same thing as someone else comes in and all we're going to do is buy a player for 20 million every other season and then a couple more for 5 million, what's the point in changing? I'd prefer to keep the ones that you've got, because a lot of people don't like to talk. They are ones, they talk too much, they tweet too much or whatever. Actually, you know, buried in mind what we do in terms of running a forum and running a YouTube channel and the Twitter and everything else, actually it's quite good for us that the owners and the people surrounding them are quite vocal, because it gives us news and it gives us things to discuss. I only found out quite recently the geezer that owns Man City is not the fella that you see. It's not, I don't even know his name, but the one that you see in the grey suit, the tall fella, actually he's just the face of it all. I think the owner, the one that owns it, the Prince of Abu Dhabi or something, he's only been to 1 or 2 games or something. And that I wouldn't want. You know, you like to feel that people are involved. The people at, I mean, the Glazers, how often are they at Man U? Not that you complain, because they are breaking world transfer records, I guess. The people, Fenway, at Liverpool, they've got a lot wrong before they've got it right. I don't think they go to many games either. And I think there's I don't know, it's a big old decision, a big decision to get right.
But I think, going back to the Red Bull thing, I mean, when I think there is room there for them to invest in West Ham, take a large chunk of the shares. I think, you know, having their sponsor, I mean, they can take that stadium naming rights if they want, regardless of their field in the club. That's nothing to do with West Ham United. Anyways, that could be the Red Bull Stadium tomorrow if they really wanted it to be. Yeah. And they'd get it quite cheap as well. 5 million a year or something, I think they were looking for. It's not expensive to name that stadium. And then it could probably end up taking our shirt sponsors anyway. I mean, is it any worse than Betway? Betway is a gambling company which is considered an illness. It's an addiction. It's can ruin people's lives. You know, Red Bull, arguably slightly more better. It's an energy drink, you know.
Well, to be fair, mate, it can make you lose your teeth. and it doesn't give you wings.
If you believe it's going to give you wings, then you're in trouble. But as long as you're sensible, you don't believe that, it's not going to cause anyone any harm. You know, a sponsor's a sponsor at the end of the day. It's not Wonga, it's not Betway, it's not, you know, not a sponsor. So they could technically still have their place. And I think just naming the stadium would give them the branding they want. You know, I would argue that having the Olympic Stadium as Red Bull Stadium and having their brand as our sponsor is a hell of a lot more marketing than it is having a football club in Austria.
Oh, listen, I totally agree, and I've got nothing. I've got nothing against them. Do you know what? I'm trying to even think. I've drunk the drink at some point. Anyway, I've got nothing against Red Bull at all. If they did to do that, sponsor the stadium, sponsor the kit, do some minor tweaks here and there, then I would have no problem with it. If they were going to make the club better, I'd have no problem with it.
I think what I like is, I don't want to come across, I'm not some German football expert, with German football enthusiastic, if you like. I mean, what they've done, they're viewed as evil. They're viewed as evil over in Germany football because they've still got that romance idea with how football should be played and how the football should be run over there. And the Red Bull have twisted the rules. They've bent the rules a lot. They adhere to the rules. They comply to the rules, but they fair know how to work their way around it. I mean, the fact that people have been saying, "Oh, look at Red Bull lies big over in Germany." That's not their name. Their name is actually Rasenball Sport, because they're not allowed to call it Red Bull. So they call it Rasenball Sport, which means, I think it means like lawn ball. So they called it that. But then when they put their own T-shirts out and stuff, they just call it RB, which everyone just assumes it's Red Bull. It's worked like wonders, but they've complied with the rules, which is you're not allowed to name your football club after a sponsor. And people will point to likes of Wolfsburg and say, well, they're heavily involved with Volkswagen, so why is that any different? Well, Volkswagen is where Volkswagen was created there. That football club came from Volkswagen.
Yeah, it was the works team, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Red Bull mean, you've got to look at, I think you have to look at the project. I mean, they took Salzburg because Red Bull's an Austrian company. It made sense to take Salzburg, and they've done it in Brazil. And New York Red Bulls made sense. It's New York. And they're trying to sell the Brazil club now. They're trying to offload that one so they can, I assume, go for a bigger European club and go up another level because they want Champions League football. That's what their aim is with Leipzig, and they're going to get it. And I think they want to do it. I think they want to tap in the English market. And I mean, you've got to look at German football. It's taken them. They're now into their 7th year in Germany, and they're only just in the Bundesliga. They're there long term. They're building from the bottom. They've got 65 million training ground and youth setup now. So they've taken kids and teach them schoolwork as well as football, etc. They're ethical, and their moral compass is so on par. It's unbelievable. They don't just come in and throw a load of money at the club like Abramovich, like Mr. Roman's done over at Chelsea. They've not really done that. They kind of strip back and work their way up and build slowly. If you look at their transfers, I know they spent a lot of money, but they invest in youth. They go after the best young players, and then we're going to build a team with young players. I mean, they don't have any 30 million player. They don't have a 40 million player. And I know that's what we want to see at West Ham. But over in Germany, that's not what they've done. They're not just throwing money at it. They said, like, let's get the young players, let's get the best of them, bring them together and build slowly so that I do think they've got the best interest in a lot of clubs that they go to, and the structure is a lot more sound and concrete, I think, than some people assume.
Yeah, I mean, it all sounds very, very nice. It really does, but you're not really saying anything that our owners couldn't do. Okay, why aren't we then invested in youth and they're doing that? I mean, I'll tell you what, if they were to do that as well, they'd have a problem with Bilic, because Bilic seems to be slightly reluctant to put the youth out on the pitch. So I mean, you'd probably find the manager would change, but I think you'd find that with any owner that were to come in. All that sounds very, very nice, but I would expect. Funny enough, like me on eBay, if I get knocked back for a bid, I'm back in with another bid. So I would have expected if anything was going to happen and we knocked back the original bid, then they would have come back and come with a second and third bid. I mean, so I think they've got it. By the sounds of it, they've got a good structure. It also, what you said when you were saying it, I thought to myself, well, actually, that's going to be a problem if what they want to do is get a team into the Champions League, and it looks like they're already going to get a team in the Champions League. What's the score there? What if they did buy an English team and then they got the English team into, forget even if it's us, they got the English team to the Champions League, and the Red Bull team from Germany plays the Red Bull team from England in the Champions League? You've got a conflict of interest there, which I'm not sure how that would work. I wonder if that's what's reason Qatar have not bought an English club yet.
I could be wrong. I think it's if you have a controlling stake in certain clubs, you're not allowed them in the same competition. They don't have a controlling stake in the German club. This is another rule they've bet. In Germany, they have a 50+1 rule.
Yes, yeah.
So the fans have to own 50+1, so the fans actually have the controlling vote. So what Red Bull have done, now Dortmund, Schalke, they have about 140, 150, 200,000 fans every year that have the 50+1. Red Bull have 17 people because they set the price of membership so high that people can't afford it. For a non-voting position in the Red Bull team, I think it's like €800, and you don't even get a vote, so no one buys it. So the only people that buy it are employees of Red Bull. So Red Bull own 49% of the company, and 51% is owned by fans. But the problem is the fans are actually employees of Red Bull. So they've bent the rules massively. They adhere to the rules so that the 50+1 is actually looked after. However, it's the Red Bull employees that are the 50+1. So I think maybe that is a workaround on how they can then invest in another European team, because then they would say, well, actually, we don't have a controlling stake over in Germany.
Well, that in itself is worrying that they've done that in Germany, that they're prepared to go as far as is legally possible without overstepping the mark. to push through their agenda. That's a worry. That doesn't endear them to me, to be perfectly honest with you. And if they've done it once in Germany, I think you're right. And then, oh, hold on a second. Basically, it sounds like they're looking for loopholes. They look for a loophole in Germany. They're going to look for a loophole in the Champions League. I've got to say, that's not the no. That's not really what I would encourage or have in mind. To be honest with you, I think when the time comes, and as long as it's right, and as long as it's just certain political things that, as I say, I wouldn't like Americans. I wouldn't like Saudis. I think when the time comes, if there is a multi-billion takeover of West Ham, I don't mean it costs billions, but someone comes in, pays 800 million for West Ham, and then they start, we start competing with Man City and so on and so forth. I think when that time comes, I'll be excited. But they sound a bit like loophole, looking for loopholes, penny pinching. I'm not sure these, we might have dodged a bullet, to be perfectly honest with you, when they turned it down. And that's where our board are important, because they do have to choose the right people to sell to. The other thing, funny enough, I said earlier on, I've yet to anybody to come up with a convincing argument as to why our board won't sell. The one that I get all the time, I'm sure you get it as well, when on social media, on the forum, and on everything else, is people say, oh yeah, but they want to pass the club down to their children. As if that's a valid reason. Well, that's not a valid reason, as I always reply to people more times than I care to remember. The way to secure your children's future is not by having a football club. Make no mistake about it. That is not the best thing you can ever do for your children, is to hand them down a football club. As I say, we've got one owner that's worth about $1 billion. We've got one owner that's worth about 500 million. Make no mistake about it. Their kids are going to be fine. But even if what they wanted to do was leave them with something, well, you know what? You can still make sure your kids are right. You can still sell the football club. You can buy them a chain of restaurants and have them manage that if you want to. You can have them set up their own businesses. There's a million different things you can do without having to have them go into football. So I just think it is going to happen. It is imminent. I don't think this is the one. I'd be very, very surprised if it is.
Is that because you don't want it to be the one, or you just don't think that there's enough in the story?
I don't care. Okay, I don't care. The more you explain, the more we discuss it, I'm starting to build an opinion. I didn't have an opinion. You texted me the other day. I was drinking. I was going to say I was drinking sausage rolls. No, I wasn't. I was drinking beer and eating sausage rolls, having a jolly old good Christmas. Okay, so I had no opinion on Red Bull taking over West Ham. So I'm sort of building it up as we go along. So I don't think it's the fact that I don't want them to, or the two big ones that have struck me have been Man City and have been Chelsea. And on both occasions, there wasn't a sniff. And I don't mean it. There was no, Abramovich is looking to buy Chelsea. There was nothing. Chelsea were in administration. Or we're about to go into administration. Ken Bates, who was the chairman at the time, had brought in a guy, I think his name was Trevor Birch. And he was desperately looking for a buyer, so as they didn't go into administration. And I think the rumour was that Abramovich was flying over London looking at a club, and he originally wanted to go and buy Tottenham Hotspur, and he flew over Chelsea's ground and said, what one's that? Rumour, I say, it's all rumour. Ken Bates built a hotel on there, apparently it had a helipad or something like that, and he was in his helicopter. Someone's got a helipad, I'll buy that one. And that's how it happened, and they kept it hush-hush. It was very, very much part of the negotiations that nothing came out. And I just remember it, bang, it came up on the news. You never heard of the guy. Go on.
To be fair, Red Bull put in a £650 million bid, and we were only finding out about it 4 months later.
Fair point. Fair point. Okay. Fair point. It was the same. I remember with Man City, it was the same as well. You knew nothing about it. It was the last day of the transfer window. They got taken over all of a sudden. City with Mark Hughes. It was Mark Hughes looking completely gormless with his arm around Robinho, thinking, "What is going on here?" And they almost bought Berbatov on the same day or something. I think that might have been it. But okay, all right, fair point. But yeah, I do think if it does happen, I think the very fact we've perhaps heard about it now would probably mean it wouldn't happen. So yeah, I'd rather it didn't happen, and I don't think it will.
I think it'd be good for the club, as long as there's that. They're going to have to give up a lot of what they believe in terms of rebranding. They cannot get away with that at the club. if you think there's been fan protests at West Ham, you ain't seen nothing unless they came in and then they tried to then change it up a little bit. But I think there's a happy medium. And that's where if the owners do keep going on about having best interest, but they do decide to sell to Red Bull, that's where they will end their salt. That's where they will make sure it's legally binding, that the colours don't change, the crest doesn't change, and the name doesn't change, etc. And, you can have the sponsor, your stadium name's nothing to do with us anyway. But I think when you look at Germany, if people go look into what they've done in Germany, I think they've done something a little bit special. Yes, they've thrown money at it, and they've had an unfair advantage. A couple of years ago when they were in the second division in Germany, in Bundesliga 2, out of all the money that was spent in that league, they spent 50% of it, and the rest of the teams couldn't even keep up with them together. But it does show that actually they will get who they need to get in order to get where they want to go. It's just that in Germany, you don't have to spend as much money as you do in England in order to break into that top tier of football. But you go watch them play football. The football they play is fantastic. They play beautiful football as well. And then you go listen to their fans that have been in that town for a long time. They'll tell you that they love that club now, that it's changed the area. The whole area has changed. The whole area is buzzing about it. They've now got a 45,000 stadium seater, which had gone unused since 2006 because of the World Cup. Sounds a bit familiar in a way, doesn't it? That the stadium was unused for 3 years, then they took it in 2009. Said, well, there's a ground. We'll take that ground. We'll take that club. We'll put that club in there. And it's almost a little bit familiar, and that's why I think maybe they looked at us and thought, well, hang on a minute. But apart from, they are, the other teams in Germany look at them and hate them. When people are cheering on Bayern Munich against them, it says a lot. But when you go ask just their fans, they'll tell you that you can go watch their interviews. There's loads of them. They'll tell you it's the best thing. It's unreal what's happened to them. They're feeling what City fans are feeling like over here.
Well, that's fans, and that's what's going to happen. So we've got this situation at the moment where everything has not been so great, and the stadium's been a bit of a downer. Well, you know what? We've had 3 wins in a row. So what we've got Leicester, Man U. I wouldn't mind betting that if we beat Leicester, when we go and play Man U, we're walking into a very, very different stadium. Of course, we're walking into the same building, but I wouldn't be surprised if all those grumbles and gripes, a lot of them sort of fall away. And that's just what happens if you get a bit of success. I'm sure their fans are quite happy. I'm sure if Red Bull were to buy us, let's say it came from nowhere. Let's say nowhere, we've done it. But let's say at the end of the season, they just buy us and it's just done. And what we do is they turn around and say we're not gonna put the crossed hammers on top of a ball. It's going to stay West Ham United. We'll do your shirt. We'll do the stadium. It stays West Ham United. You keep your badge. We'll even remove London for you, from the badge. And what we're going to do is we're going to buy Riyad Mahrez, Daniel Sturridge, and Virgil van Dijk for 100 million. Then all of a sudden, everyone's like, hey, okay, bang on, come on, we'll have a bit of this. Then, it all, people's worries sort of fall away. So I don't think what fans would want to hear is someone taking over and saying, oh, we've got a long-term plan. We're going to start investing in youth. And if you think, hold on a second, we've moved to this stadium to challenge for the top 4, not to start buying best players,
But just to butt in, Man City have invested in youth, but at the same time, they've invested in players that are capable of playing today. But they've also had a look at one eye on the future, thinking we need to start getting these young players in so that when Yaya Toure is knackered, someone is 19 years old, and while he's not as good as Yaya Toure, he's good enough to go on the bench, and whoever's on the bench is good enough to take Yaya Toure's. They're succession planning, if you like.
No. I agree. I've got no gripes with what Man City are doing. They're doing absolutely right. What I'm saying is someone comes in, doesn't buy whatever. I've used 3 examples. I say Mahrez, Sturridge and Van Dijk because I think they probably cost about 100 million for the 3 of them. Well, I'm not saying don't do that. Do it, but make sure you spend the 100 million as well. What you don't do is don't not spend 100 million and just say, oh, we've got a lovely, there's a lovely right winger at Tranmere Rovers who we're going to look to bring for. No, people, we don't want to hear it. That's my opinion of it anyway.
To play my own devil's advocate, would it be, let's just say somehow we accepted a Red Bull offer, would the worry be that we are shutting the door on potential bigger investors?
No, they do not care in the same way. I know it's
No, as a football fan, would you not be worried that we're taking the first big deal rather than the correct deal? Do you not think, would it not be frustrating as a fan or the worst thing ever to see us take it and then a year later the big man from over at Eastern comes in and takes up another club in London or whatever, buys Spurs or something, and he's got the 200, 300 million per window to spend for a couple of years?
no, you roll the dice, you take your chances. As I said with Tottenham, you know, Abramovich could have been at Tottenham. What a nightmare that would have been. You know, I'm no fan of Chelsea, but I mean, it would have been unbearable with Tottenham winning all sorts. And you know, oh, can you imagine them? Sick. Imagine them. When they're bad, enough when they lose. They can't be finished behind Arsenal every season. They're bad enough. Can you imagine them being 6 points in the league and winning the Champions League? Oh, it'd be terrible, mate. It'd be terrible. I have to move to the moon or something. But I just think that. I think the big boys are going to come in anyway. You know, I would be very, very surprised if a top Chinese fella hasn't come in or Qatar have made contact. There would have been inquiries. You'd have to be a very, very unrealistic expectations if you were to think that no other inquiries apart from Red Bull have been made for West Ham United. I'd be surprised if 5 or 10 haven't already been made from important people. But we've got to remember the board, Mr. Gold, Mr. Sullivan, have sold. They sold for 80 million, Birmingham City, to Carsten Young. Now, this is where you have stats can tell you anything you want to know. So, not that I have heard them particularly say this, but our current owners could turn around and say, well, actually, we made a great success of Birmingham City. We got them promoted from the lower leagues and we left them in a healthy position. And in the next season, they went and won the League Cup, didn't they? That would be one way of spinning the story. And it's true. Everything I said there was true. But there's another aspect to it as well, which is they took over Birmingham City. I think they got relegated a couple of times as well. Then they took them up. Then they sold them for 80 million quid. And yes, they did win the League Cup, but they also got relegated. And the bloke they sold them to actually got imprisoned for fraud. And the club just went bang like that. So both things are correct. Both things I've said are correct, but they're almost two different stories. So I think, bearing in mind, whilst they may have a public opinion that they did well at Birmingham and they sold it on well, they didn't sell it on well. And I think they're horrible people or anything like it. So I'm pretty sure if another Chinese consortium or something came knocking, they would probably have to do their due diligence very, very, very well, because they're probably once bitten, twice shy with it and thinking, hold on, we don't want that particularly to happen again. I'm sure they would. I'm sure they wouldn't. I'm sure they don't want to take the first offer. I'm sure they wouldn't do.
Yeah, that's my only devil's advocate worry, that if we were to take the first offer, at some point down the line, someone else bigger, richer, maybe even better comes along. But I suppose that's the chances you've got to take. Like you say, you've got to roll the dice, and that by the time that big boy comes along, you could be fifth in the league with Mahrez and Sturridge and Van Dijk in your team. You could have your new training ground 2 years into a 3-year construction ready for state of the art. You've got the next Etihad training style camp going on type thing. So when the next big boy comes along, you're actually already 3 years into your 5-year project, and he's starting from the scratch, etc. So I mean, he'll
still buy you. That big fella will still buy you. But the big fella is already aware of West Ham. These people, Premier League, we signed the biggest TV deal in world football. The next TV deal will probably be even bigger. I think it might level out after that. Everyone knows, and everyone's looking for Premier League clubs to buy. And what you really want is, you want a club in Manchester or you want a club in London. Well, the Manchester ones are gone, although I do think the Glazers would sell it. Someone offered 2.5 billion, ridiculous. If someone offered 2.5 billion for Man U, I think they'd be gone. But I think the people are after London club, and funny enough, you'd want a Premier League London club. And yeah, watch your space. I think Tottenham are obviously, Tottenham West Ham.
Do you think that part of the reason for the owners being so open about the Red Bull thing, do you think they are putting themselves in the window a little bit and going, "Oh, big boy, I know you're watching, coming over. We've had 650 million, rejected that." I mean, within that article, the way he's the way he writes it, the way he mentions that he'd only sell to someone else. Like they think he's really waving over it, saying, "Come on, then, come over here with your checkbook. I'm ready for an offer." Do you think he's putting the club in the shop window?
Gio, listen, I mean, that's what it is. I mean, listen, I don't eat takeaways. I'd only open my front door for a pizza, a KFC, or a kebab. Do you know what I mean? Apart from that, I'm not interested. I just think you are saying, okay, come in, and then it's not even getting off on a technicality. Okay, so it's a Saudi prince. Oh, well, Saudi prince, don't have to be a Saudi prince, can be a Russian oil baron or whatever, you know, a Chinese, the Chinese government, the money that's in China, eventually they're going to work out in China that actually it's not going to work. They're not going to make the game popular by doing what they're doing. Not the first people to try it, by the way. But Japan tried it for a while. I remember Gary Lineker going over there, went to a couple Grand Passat and stuff like that. Everyone's tried it. MLS have tried it.
India tried it last year with David James and
etc. It doesn't work because you just can't force it. You can't force it in India because the Indians are cricket mad and they've got their own thing. You know, the IPL, the Indian 2020 Cricket League, is monstrous. I mean, they are absolute fanatical. 100,000 in stadiums, not bothered about the football really. And why would you watch a substandard? It's funny. It's a silly thing. I'm going off on a tangent. I watched ice hockey years ago, and I watched ice hockey in Canada, and I watched it all around. I think when I watched Vancouver, and they played someone called the Pittsburgh Penguins, and the Pittsburgh Penguins had an excellent player. I mean, he was a guy called Mario Lemieux, who was meant to be the second best hockey player ever. I knew nothing about the game. Basically, I watched one of the best players in the world play amongst all the other best players in the world. I thought, oh, this is great. Came back to England, and they were playing. They're playing in Docklands, not far from the O2 actually. And someone said, "Oh, come along, you like ice hockey? Come watch the London Knights." I tell you what, crap. I mean, they were awful. They could barely hit the puck, and it was just terrible. And it was such a substandard thing. And I remember thinking, well, I know it's in my country, but why do I watch that crap brand of ice hockey when actually I can turn on the telly and watch the NHL, which I watch the world's best? And I think you've just going to have the same thing. That's what's happened in India. You have the same thing in China. Right, we can bring Oscar over for however much we're paying him. We can watch Hulk play and this, that, and the other. But they're still just going to switch on the football when Man U play Arsenal and watch the telly, watch the English Premier League, because you're just not going to be able to break into it. I just think at that point, someone from China is going to come over and just think, do you know what? Let's stop investing in our own league. Let's go and buy ourselves a top European club and make them dominant. So I think investment is waiting, to be fair.
Yeah, you can influence a football league, but you can't influence a culture, basically.
No.
I totally agree. I mean, you just have to look at the money they're spending in that league, and no one I know said, "Oh, I'm going to start taking an interest in China because of all these players going over there." Nobody. You can sign whoever you want for however much money. I'm not going to stick on the Chinese football. So I get your point. So let's start wrapping this one up. I suppose we're going on for a while. Red Bull, are you yes or no to Red Bull?
It's going to be a no. It's going to be a no for me because everything you've said is what if they don't do the name and they don't do the badge? Well, everything I've seen suggests they will do the name and they will try and do the badge. So it's just a no from me. I think what we've got, Golden Sullivan, is better.
And if they do, let's just theoretically, well, you think it'll happen or not? If they didn't change the badge, the strip colours, or the name, they left that alone, and would you then be okay for them? Or
well, not if they're just going to do that thing. I mean, I need to see significant investment. There's no point in swapping owners and staying the same.
Well, they have done significant investment in Germany, but they've done it to a German Bundesliga standard in the sense that you don't need to spend as much money in Germany. I mean, what they've done is they've spent enough to be second in a league, right behind, breathing down Bayern Munich's neck. So they've obviously invested.
All right. If we take it out, if they were going to come in and spend what was required to make us second in the Premier League, which would be about 200 million in the first season, by the way, and probably an then some, then yeah, by all means. But if they're going to come in and spend 40, 50 million in the transfer, forget it. You know, it's just not going to do it. I'd rather stick as we are and wait for, you know, the multi billionaire a little bit down the road, you know.
It's quite a shame though, isn't it, that everyone is just ready. Everyone's just ready for us to be sold. We've all given up. Well, not necessarily given up. We've all decided that it's going to happen at some point. We're just going to have to embrace it.
But everyone knows it's not. everyone knows. Everyone knows that's what it was about. And, you know, I for one, do not blame. And as an entrepreneur, that's what they're going to do. If, as I say, they would have, if they weren't that way, they would have stopped when they had 10 million. Something has spurred them on to make 50 million, 100 million, 200 million, 300, something has spurred them on. And if they can basically go on and make another hundreds and hundreds of million profit, they're going to do it. And everyone knows it. And everyone knows that's what the stadium move has been about, is by putting us in prime position for that takeover, for those sales. Fans aren't silly. Everyone can see through it. They know what it is, the rebranding, the London, as you said. You know, they haven't put flaming, you know, Nathan's pie and mash up there. Do you know what I mean? All that sort of thing, have they? It's been very much globally branded. So that's why no one's surprised. Nobody is surprised.
I'm a yes for Red Bull, providing they don't touch the crest, name and colours. I'm a no to that, complete no to that. But the rest of it, I'm a yes. I like what they've done in Germany. I know they're seen as evil in Germany, but as a neutral, outside looking in, I think they've done fantastic. The structure's there, the players are there, the whole thing's really good. They're really good to watch. I would love to see some of that at West Ham. I'd love to see success West Ham. It's the only way we're going to see success, isn't it? But have you enjoyed your cup of tea tonight?
Yeah, unfortunately, my wife has gone out. Wife's on a night shift tonight, so I was hoping to get a cup of tea halfway through. But yeah, so I'm going to go and make another one now. I've got a lot of biscuits, a couple of tins of biscuits actually, so I'm going to go and going to rustle around in those, take the dark chocolate ones out, remove anything with any coffee tasting biscuits, and going to eat all the good ones and leave the nasty ones for my wife.
A coffee tasting biscuit. I've never come across one of them, thankfully.
Revels. Coffee tasting Revels.
That's not biscuit. I thought you said biscuit. As I say, that's not biscuit.
I did, but anything coffee flavoured that's not coffee, I think it's nasty.
Well, we'll have another cup of tea next week and discuss some transfers.
We will definitely. Big targets. The fella from Knees Up Mother Brown has he's released some rumours, some in the know stuff, hasn't he? So hopefully we look at that. We're in the transfer window. What I hope with that, I know we'll do that. It's a different thing. I hope that the recent results haven't sort of dampened the spirits in their sort of quest to bring in some new transfers. We still need new transfers. We still need the striker. Still need the right back. Let's not. I hope that the 3 wins have not masked over what needs to be done for the squad. So yeah, let's do a chat next week, and we'll discuss what needs to be done.
Well, we've got a plug now. Man U, we're playing Man U on the 2nd of January. We're doing our first boat trip. Every game, before and after every game, we host people at the nearest bar to the London Stadium. It's 5 minutes from your seat. It's really easy to book. You can just email us, hammerschat@gmail.com. I'll put a link, the email below, just so you know. But we've still got some spaces left for the Man U game for before and after you wish to join us. But we've also got a few spaces left on the boat. Between 1 and 2 p.m, we're taking a boat around the London Stadium on the canal. It's a nice little booze cruise, if you like, some music and beer. If you want to come and join us, get in touch. We'll make sure you can get some tickets and you can come have a few beers with us and have a barbecue with us as well next to the ground on the 2nd of January. Our Leicester preview is on the channel already, so make sure you check that out. And we will be live for the Leicester review on New Year's Eve, straight after full time, hopefully celebrating another win for West Ham. And later that night, we will be live with the Man U preview. So we've got lots and lots of content coming up. This is a big fixture pile up. And make sure you subscribe to this channel while you're here. Gonzo, anything you'd like to say before we say au revoir?
No, just very quickly on the boat. When Gio says about the boats, they really are. They're moored straight up, right outside the stadium. As you walk over the footbridge by the aquatic centre, they're very, very family friendly. I'll be taking my son down with me for the Man U game. There's plenty of toilets on there. You get served really quickly. It's safe. It's gated. You can only come in by invitation, invite only. We've got loads of different beers there, and it's just a really nice place to enjoy a drink. And the kids all play table football, don't they, Gio? And we're very good at table football as well, by the way, as you might have seen on that video. It's just a really good place to be. The barbecue's good. It's not some, burger that tastes like the sole on your shoe. It's really nice, good burgers, good sausages, all that sort of thing. It's just a lovely place to come down, enjoy a drink. And we sort of leg it about 10 minutes before kick-off, we sort of leg it from the boat, and we're in our seats by the time we're singing Bubbles. So yeah, come along and join us.
Yeah, join us for that. Join us for the Leicester review on New Year's Eve. Thank you very much for watching. Let us know your thoughts. Come on to the forum at hammerchat.com. What do you think of Red Bull? What do you think of the takeovers? And of course, leave your comments below. But we'll be back next week doing another cup of tea on transfers. Thank you for watching.